Good morning. Welcome to the Kingsport News Hour. The 16th year of Cheonggi, the leap 6th month, 7th day. This is Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Cheonggi, Young Jin-woon. And let's go see what's going on around the kingdom right now. And oopsie daisy. Okay, we have a problem here. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay. So in Chongpyeong, Tennessee right now, 70 degrees and partly sunny, 87 for a high today, mostly cloudy and humid with a couple of showers and a heavy thunderstorm. And then tonight, 69 for a low, cloudy and humid with a thunderstorm. And then in father's hometown of Cheongju, North Gyeongan Province, what is today North Korea, 92 degrees currently, partly sunny, 73 for a low tonight, humid with increasing cloudiness, a couple of late night showers, high of 85 tomorrow, passing shower in the morning, otherwise cloudy and humid. And at the Cheongguk Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania, currently 71 and mostly cloudy, high of 75. Whoa, what happened? High of 75. Well, that's the place to be, apparently. Humid, a morning shower, then breezy with showers and a heavier thunderstorm. Okay, well, it's raining, so it's going to be raining a lot today. Life-threatening flooding and dangerous travel and is likely in some areas. No, don't do any dangerous travel, please. High of 75, and then tonight, low of 61. Breezy with periods of rain, some heavy, risk of significant flash flooding. Watch for and avoid rapidly rising water. All right. Sounds like some exciting times at Cheongguk Palace. At Limestone County, Texas, at the Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground, 72 degrees right now, mostly cloudy. Whoa, getting up to triple digits, 102 today, partly sunny and hot. Danger of dehydration and heat stroke if outside for extended periods of time. Tonight, low of 75, clear to partly cloudy. And at the Suncheon Palace in Korea, currently 80 degrees and mostly clear. Tonight, getting down to 73. Tomorrow, a high of 100. Very hot with abundant sunshine. And then at the Gunma Palaces in Japan, currently 86. Partly cloudy, 70 for a low tonight, and tomorrow, partly sunny, humid, afternoon thunderstorm parts of the area, high of 87. Whoa, cooling down a lot there. And in Ilan, Taiwan, currently 85, clear. Tonight, getting out of 80 degrees. Tomorrow, high of 94, sun in areas of high clouds in the morning, then rather cloudy in the afternoon with a little rain. So yes, where did we have yeah, that was Texas, right? Yeah, that was Liberty Rock. 100 and what was it? 102 is it for a high today? Yeah, 102 for a high today. All right, so watch out for that. Okay. All right, let's go to Father's Word, and I'm in the book on the Pan-Pacific Providence. Chapter 1, 21st century is the era of the ocean, And Father here is talking about, speaking 1998, March 27th, talking about fish farming in the Pantanal. So along the Amazon, in the hinterlands of the Pantanal, there are 3,600 kinds of fish. There's 3,600, but every creature that God created is living there in the Pantanal area. So along the Amazon and along the Pantanal River, along the Paraguay River, that is the case. So 만드는 것입니다. So here the verb is, how should I translate the verb tense here? 만드는 것입니다. We make. It's just a normal present tense, but the nuances we are going to make, I guess, or well, yeah, that'd be right. I guess we are going to make, we should make, we must make, something like that. A little bit. I have to kind of really get into Father's head in order to understand exactly what the verb tense should be in English. But we will make, I guess, we will make fish farms centering on the 3,600 kinds of fish. And those who are interested in that area, will come even if you tell them not to. We have newspaper or newspapers. We have newspapers, so we can put out the word that there are fish farms that are farming 3,600 types of fish, and they can count. So, well, okay, now it's 36 kinds, and now it's 360 kinds. Now it's, and then they're going to do 360 kinds, and then the 360 types of fish will be farmed, and they'll be farming 360 times by a certain date, and then it'll take a certain X number of years to reach 3,600 times. So try it. Those who are interested will come. Okay, so praise God. So Father, many ideas that he had for all sorts of things, but you can tell though the Father's great love and interest in God's creation and his desire to sort of be the gardener, right? The person who's taking care of the garden for God. All right, let's see. I want to today, well, let's, first of all, we need to start with the news about the whole sort of Family Federation legal trouble situation. And again, not that, we take pleasure in this, but we need to know this information. Father is heartbroken by what is going on. And here, the Mainichi newspaper in Japan is reporting that on its website, court okays provisional seizure of Unification Church's Tokyo headquarters land. And this is a photograph. I've never seen an aerial photograph of that building, but here it is. Here it is. Okay. The Japanese court has approved the provisional seizure of the Unification Church headquarters land in Tokyo as sought by alleged victims of the church's aggressive donation solicitation practices, a lawyers group said Wednesday. The 10 people who are negotiating damages payment by the Unification Church in a separate procedure filed for the land seizure in June, fearing the church could hide its assets to evade payouts, the lawyers group said. The Unification Church criticized the move as completely unnecessary and wasteful, stating it has absolutely no plans of disposing of the land. Well, actually, it may not have any plans. That may be true, but right now, this is a separate case from the cancellation or potential cancellation of the religious corporation status. In that case, the district court, of course, has already ordered the cancellation, but the appeal is still being heard by the Tokyo High Court. And once if the High Court affirms the lower court ruling, then at that point, the Family Federation will be forced by law to dispose of all of its assets. The church can appeal the High Court's decision to the Supreme Court, yes, but regardless of that appeal and completely independent of that appeal, the law will require that the church dispose of all its assets, including the church headquarters in Tokyo. And they have a number of church buildings around the country and other things other assets that they have. So I don't know if it's actually true that they have absolutely no plans to dispose of the land. Well, they may not, but the court, I think, does. So anyway, these people wanted to make sure that no funny business took place. In the decision dated July 18, the Tokyo District Court greenlighted the seizure under a new law enacted in December 2023 to strengthen monitoring of religious corporation assets that could be subject to legal claims. and so forth and so on. And with the seizure, the church can continue its activities at the headquarters building, but is barred from selling or donating the land. While an application for provisional seizure requires collateral, the Japan Legal Support Center, a public organization, supplied the financial backing under the law, the group said. The law strengthens surveillance of a group under the threat of losing its religious corporation status, such as by requiring it to give central or prefectural government authorities, prefectural government authorities at least 1 month's notice before disposing of assets. If notification is not given, the organization is prohibited from proceeding with any further liquidation. So that's why it's probably right that it's not necessary. And the Tokyo District Court in March ordered that the Unification Church be stripped of its religious corporation status as sought by the Japanese government, but the legal proceedings continue as the religious group has appealed to a high court. Such a dissolution order, if finalized, would deprive the group formerly known as the Family Federation for World Peace and Unification of tax benefits as a religious corporation, although it would still be able to continue its activities in Japan. Well, that'll be interesting to see exactly, what will happen. They cannot own assets, and also probably they will not be able to send money to Korea. And I think that's really the important thing that I'm focused on. Really, the Japanese Blessed Center families, well, formerly Blessed Center families, have suffered way more than they should have to. And right now, their suffering is not serving God. It's helping Satan's effort. And they really need to stop donating, or the government needs to get them, or somehow stop the funds from going to Korea. And I know they're stuffing their pockets with cash and delivering it in person to Korea. But I think that once the organization no longer exists, I believe that the donations will go down. And I'm more focused on that. I'm not expecting that a whole lot of people will be coming over to the Sanctuary Church when the organization is dissolved, the corporation is dissolved. Religions are a funny thing. Not really funny, but they're a powerful force. Romans tried for 4 centuries, or 3 centuries plus, to stamp out Christianity, but eventually it was Rome that got stamped out. Religions can sometimes be absorbed by other religions. That can happen. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see. Some people will come to Sanctuary, I know, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. But let's not get our hopes up too much. But we can continue to pray for the people who are in the Family Federation, who are still in that Family Federation mess. Meanwhile, here in Korea, actually, this is something that happened yesterday as well. But the court has issued what is called a warrant of detention for Yoon Yong-ho Yoon, who was formerly the World Mission Director for the Family Federation worldwide. And I think apparently in Japan it's being reported as he was arrested, but the official sort of translation of the document that was issued here, the English translation, is the warrant of detainment. So, and sometimes the court will issue an arrest warrant, but this is not the case here. It's a warrant of detainment. So anyway, he's in jail either way, whether he was detained or arrested. Either way, he's in jail. And the court, in explaining their action, said that there was a possibility that he would destroy evidence, or that he would actually try to contact some powerful persons to try and get their support in order to escape justice. So anyway, he is in jail. And media is reporting that now the special counsel is focusing on investigating Wonju McDevitt. Now, they don't use her name, but we all know who she is, who that is when they mentioned a certain Chung, person with the surname Chung, who is the highest assistant to Hak Ja Han. They're investigating Wonju McDevitt. She is, I believe, not in the country. I believe she's back in the United States. And I think she may have U.S. citizenship. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But we'll find out. Okay. And also, they're trying to see if they can connect Hak Ja Han to the whole situation. Right now, Yoon is saying that, yes, he admits the allegations that he attempted to, or that he gave gifts. He gave gifts indirectly to the former First Lady. And the allegation is that he did so as a bribe, in an attempt to bribe the president to help out the Family Federation on a number of projects that they had going, including something that they had going in Cambodia and some other projects. And the Family Federation, well, he says, yes, I did it, but all I was doing was following Hak Ja Han's orders. I just did what I was told. That's all. So he's sort of trying to bring her into it. He does not want to take the fall for this. But the Family Federation is saying, no, this is something he did all on his own, and the Family Federation had absolutely nothing to do with it. So the special counsel's office is trying to find evidence to back up their allegation that this was all a bribery scandal, was directed by Hak Ja Han. And if they're able to find the evidence, and they're looking very hard, if they're able to find the evidence, then most likely they will be issuing some sort of warrant against Hak Ja Han. Whether, it can be, there are a number of avenues that the special counsel could take. And I remain skeptical that they're actually going to put an 80-year-old woman, 80-year-old grandmother who's basically blind in jail. But we'll have to see. They may do it. It would help it would help her case. It would help her case if she were just a tad more humble. But she's coming out and saying, the special counsel has what does she say? Blasphemed. She blasphemed heaven. And the special counsel does not know the power of true parents. So she's basically, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead type of mindset. And so in this case, the torpedoes, I think, are very likely to strike and explode and sink her. So we will see what happens with that whole situation. And, she has various ways of avoiding arrest or detention. Usually in Korea, when the head of a chaebol, one of the conglomerates, is in trouble with the law, it seems the first action they take is that they check themselves into a hospital. Oh, I'm sick. I'm sorry. I can't respond to your subpoena. I'm sick. That seems to be the standard course of action. So Hak Ja Han may do that, although she, does not like to show weakness, and sort of claim sickness may go against her desire to always show strength. I don't know. Well, it'll be interesting to watch and see what goes on. But as I said, the whole thing is very heartbreaking for her father, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. All right. Okay, let's look at some of the things that are going on. The GDP estimate was released yesterday, right? And 3% for the second quarter. That's the April, May, and June quarter. The first quarter, January, February, March, was, what was it? A slight negative number. I think the final number was 0.5 or 0.4, something like that. Anyway, so the Wall Street Journal has a breakdown of just exactly where that 3% came from. And it's a bit interesting, so I'd like to show it to you, show you their graph. And I'm taking this from one of the sites that George Gammon runs. He has a number of sites. This is from Rebel Capitalist, which I subscribe to. And here, afraid I can't expand this any larger. Maybe I can do full screen. Okay, that's a little bit better. Okay. So here, this is the GDP increase during the second quarter of 3%, and this is obviously annualized. And then consumer spending contributed this much to that, and then investment, actually there was a decline in investment, and the contribution of investment to the 3% was actually a negative number. And then government 0.08. Well, that's good news. We don't like government contributing to the GDP. Although, it'd be better if this were a negative number, a big negative number. But government was basically able to hold its own. Basically, exports. With negative number, and then the imports are a huge positive. But down here, you have to look at the note. I'll read it for you because it's probably too small for you to read it. Imports are a subtraction in the calculation of GDP. Thus, a decrease in imports results in a positive contribution to GDP. So this shows that is that imports during the second quarter were way down. And remember that in the first quarter, the imports were way up, and that was why, because imports are subtracted from GDP. That's the way they calculate it. Because imports are subtracted from GDP, it resulted in a negative number overall for the first quarter GDP. But in the second, and that was because people were, rushing their imports in to beat what they thought was going to be a huge increase in tariffs in early April. Turned out, no. President Trump extended the deadline a couple of times, and so actually the actual deadline is tomorrow, August 1st, and now. But anyway, imports went down during the second quarter because so much had been imported during the first quarter. That's probably what happened, and also because some of the tariffs are already in place, and so that is also putting a brake on imports, and also because import prices are going up. I think we need to also understand that, because the dollar has been going down, and it's been going down ever since President Trump took the oath of office. And that raises, when the dollar's value goes down relative to other currencies, that raises the price of imports. And with the higher prices may be another reason why the imports are down. So anyway, that's what is going on with the GDP. And
this is breaking down today's report that made up that 3%.
So get rid of that. Okay. All right. And then let's see what is going on here. Oh yeah, I wanted to do this story. Well, I don't know if I've ever done a UPI story. This is an opinion piece on UPI by David Maxwell, and he is. Hold on a second. I'll show it to you in a minute. Retired U.S. Army Special Forces colonel who has spent more than 30 years in the Asia-Pacific region. He specializes in Northeast Asian security affairs and irregular, unconventional, and political warfare. He is vice president of the Center for Asia-Pacific Strategy and a senior fellow at the Global Peace Foundation. See. So he's connected to Preston. See. After he retired, he became associate director of the Security Studies program at Georgetown University. He's on the board of directors of the Committee for Human Rights in North Korea in the OSS Society, and is editor-at-large of the Small Wars Journal. I was wondering how UPI got a hold of this guy's opinion piece. And so it turns out that he's connected to Preston. And of course, I think Preston right now owns UPI. Anyway, let's go ahead and it's a good piece anyway. So I'm sure no one's going to run out and subscribe to UPI as a result of this. So let's go ahead and go through it, right? It just it's just sort of ignore the source. Okay. Amid escalating tensions between conservatives and liberals in South Korea, and as the world fixates on North Korea's menacing nuclear arsenal, a more insidious threat is shaping the fate of the Korean Peninsula. Sophisticated and largely covert political warfare orchestrated by the regimes of Beijing and Pyongyang. I know the Preston's group keeps having these conferences on Korean reunification, but frankly, really, I don't know how much influence they're having. In fact, I don't think they're having any influence at all. I think basically conferences are a sort of a advertising venue for Preston himself. But anyway, let's let's continue with this. Let's ignore the source. While missile launches and rhetoric grab international headlines, China's strategy of unrestricted warfare and Kim family's brand of political warfare with Juche characteristics are quietly undermining the Republic of Korea from within, eroding its democracy and threatening the pillars of the Iraq-U.S. alliance. And this is true. I agree with this very much, that right now China is undermining Korea from within. And this is, why President Yoon thought it necessary to do a kind of a Hail Mary. And his attempt at a coup d'etat, or martial law, attempt at martial law, was really a Hail Mary. But Hail Marys are kind of, I don't know what the statistics are, but the probabilities, I think, are pretty low. And sure enough, this time too. I think because, he didn't really have much of a military background. So he didn't really, I think, understand how to carry out some of the nitty-gritty details of carrying out a martial law situation. I think we're missing. Anyway, here, so they're eroding its democracy, and the press right now, the Western sort of, especially the liberal press, is praising South Korea's democracy because they stopped the coup, and also Yoon Suk-yeol is being investigated and probably is going to go to prison. His wife is probably going to go to prison. But actually, it is the failure of the coup was probably the final death knell for democracy in Korea, I expect. China's concept of unrestricted warfare, popularized by the People's Liberation Army and operationalized through the Chinese Communist Party's United Front Work Department, goes far beyond traditional battlefield engagement. It includes a coordinated all-domain campaign of 3 warfares: psychological operations, legal or lawfare, maneuvers, and media public opinion warfare. The goal of these tactics is clear: to weaken adversaries without firing a shot, minimize attribution, and gain strategic dominance by sowing confusion, division, and dependency in targeted societies. And you can see how the United States also is being targeted in this way. And President Trump's, especially his second victory, I think, was a tremendous blow to China's unrestricted warfare. There are 3 warfares, and it's a tremendous accomplishment that has been done there. In South Korea, the United Work Front Department plays a pivotal role in coordinating influence operations. The department actively seeks to suppress dissent against the Chinese Communist Party, monitor diaspora communities, and foster loyalty among ethnic Chinese within South Korea. And while it's, this same article could be written about many other countries. Organizations such as the All Korean Nationals of Chinese Descent Council mirror similar work department-aligned groups worldwide, cultivating pro-Beijing sentiment and integrating the community under CCP-friendly leadership. Intelligence gathering, elite capture, economic coercion, and technology transfer are just a few of the tactics employed to shape South Korean policy and public opinion in ways that align with Beijing's interests. So President Trump actually has announced that a trade deal has been reached with South Korea. That includes, I think, what is it, $350 billion of investment by South Korea. But President Trump has sort of gotten promises of investment from Japan, from Europe, from where else? India, I guess, other places. But those have yet to materialize. And so I don't know exactly how all this is going to happen. The current president of South Korea, Lee Myung-jae, is certainly a pro-Chinese person, and he is not really inclined to be friendly with the United States. Although, as part of the trade deal, the United States has promised that Lee Myung-jae can come to Washington and meet President Trump in the Oval Office in about 2 weeks. And I think that was politically important for Lee Myung-jae, because still, he's trying to tell people that no, I'm not anti-American. I'm not anti-American. See, here I am here at the White House talking with President Trump. So don't accuse me of being anti-American. And in fact, he is. That's just the reality of it. But he's going to go to Washington, and he's going to pretend to be pro-American there and everything. He's going to smile and everything. And President Trump may be taken in by that as well. I don't know. Anyway, I hope that he's not. Intelligence, political warfare with Juche characteristics, North Korea's hand. North Korea, under the Kim family regime, has long waged political warfare, guided by its own Juche ideology as a core weapon against the South. Pro-North Korean elements within South Korea, spanning political figures, civic organizations, and clandestine networks, pursue active subversion. And of course, this has been going on for decades and decades and decades. Their efforts sometimes lead to legal intervention, fuel political controversies and polarization, further complicating South Korea's internal dynamics. These activities are not theoretical concerns. They are ongoing, with direct implications for key political events, such as the snap presidential election held last June. Covert assistance from Pyongyang's United Front Department and the Reconnaissance General Bureau supports agents of influence in the South, aiming to delegitimize Seoul's democratic institutions and fracture the U.S.-ROC security partnership. And currently, the left has control of all three branches of government in South Korea. They have a majority in the legislature. Also, they have the presidency now, and also the Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court are both dominated by leftist judges. So basically, the current president can do anything that he wants. And I noticed that the European Chamber of Commerce in Korea put out a statement, I think either today or yesterday, saying that the legislature right now is in the process of changing the labor relations law. And the European Chamber of Commerce in Korea was saying that, listen, if this passes as it's currently being considered, some European businesses will be leaving Korea, because it'll make it impossible or extremely difficult for employers to do business in South Korea. But it's going to pass because the president has said it should pass. And there's really nothing that's going to stop it from passing. So we'll have to see what effect that has on the economy. But it's really a communist law that strengthens the power of labor unions and weakens the power of employers. So we'll see how that works out. One of the defining qualities of Chinese and North Korean influence operations is mastery of covert action. Their tradecraft is designed around deniability. Admit nothing, deny everything, and make counter accusations to undermine any allegations of illicit activities. And of course, this going on in the U.S. as well. Lack of overt evidence is not proof of innocence. So the American media, especially leftist media, likes to say President Trump said without evidence. They always include that phrase without evidence, right? So the lack of overt evidence is not proof of innocence, but rather a hallmark of skillful subversion and effective tradecraft. When credible exposés or documentaries reveal such operations, well-coordinated attacks arise, not organically, but as orchestrated disinformation campaigns intended to discredit the truth and intimidate dissenters. And this is what happened with the Hunter Biden laptop, right? A couple of weeks before the 2020 election, the New York Post published a story about the Hunter Biden laptop, and this is exactly what happened. Well-coordinated attacks, not organically, but as orchestrated disinformation campaigns intended to discredit the truth and intimidate dissenters. Exactly what happened with the Hunter Biden laptop. The almost instantaneous, highly synchronized responses to critical media coverage of Chinese or North Korean influence operations in South Korea reveal the depth of planning and forethought, not spontaneous public backlash, but a calculated attempt to manipulate perceptions and stifle legitimate concerns. The objectives of China and North Korea are inextricably linked. Beijing views a weak or politically fractured South Korea as a strategic advantage, undermining U.S. influence in the region and shifting the balance of power in favor of Chinese interests. President Trump has said that he is committed to defending South Korea. But what if the next president is from the Democrat Party, which may happen? It may happen, especially if inflation gets going and people are beginning to feel poor 4 years or 3.5 years from now. It's possible that if the Democrats run someone decent, do they have someone decent? Anyway, if they run someone decent, then they could actually defeat the J.D. Vance or whoever the Republicans put up. So it could be that China and North Korea is just sort of waiting to see what happens in 2028. Simultaneously, Pyongyang seeks to drive a wedge between Seoul and Washington, undermine the legitimacy of South Korea's democracy, and eventually end the U.S. nuclear umbrella, as well as the American military presence on the peninsula. Remember how, I think what we said on Tuesday, right, that Kim Yo-jong, the younger sister of Kim Jong-un, said that, well, actually it was Monday, right? Monday when she commented on the South Korean government saying that, well, you're trying to reach out to us, but you're also committed to the security relationship with the United States. So you're just the same as the others. So no, sort of indirectly instructing the South Korean regime to cut their security relationship with the United States if they want to be friends with North Korea. Okay. Both regimes benefit from mutual reinforcement. Chinese support for North Korean provocations and Pyongyang's subversive leverage serves the broader aim of turning the Korean Peninsula into a fault line in U.S.-China strategic competition. This shared interest sustains a persistent campaign to destabilize the South, not just through conventional threats, but by eroding the very fabric of Korean society and politics from within. The Korean Peninsula is no longer just a flashpoint for North Korean military threats or domestic political struggles. It is ground zero in a broader clash between U.S.-led democratic alliances and authoritarian great power ambitions. Well, this has always been true, right? Since what? Since 1948, when the governments were formed on each side of the what at that time was the 38th parallel in Pyongyang and in Seoul. It's been that way ever since then. Rather than simply preparing for open aggression, South Korea must recognize and counter the unseen campaigns waged daily by its northern neighbor and the world's most powerful authoritarian state. And too many South Koreans view this situation through the lens of power politics. And Korea actually got burned previously when in China, the Ming Dynasty was declining, and they were being invaded and by what would eventually become, I think it was the Ming, wasn't it? Anyway, one dynasty was declining, and I would say Ming and the Qing. And the Qing dynasty was coming up, the Manchus were coming in, and South and Korea was given the option by the rising forces, the Qing, what later became the Qing dynasty, to side with them. But the Koreans said, no, 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 we have an obligation. We have a Confucian obligation to the Ming dynasty. So no matter what happens, we have to stick it out with them. And so the Qing dynasty actually came in and punished South Korea, well, Korea in general, very severely, and took a lot of slaves, women, female slaves, and it was a terrible situation. So now I think many Koreans see this in that light. Do we choose China or do we choose the United States? The United States seems to be declining. China seems to be rising. Maybe we should choose China. But of course, that is completely wrong. As this gentleman here says, broader clash between US-led democratic alliances and authoritarian great power ambition. So it's not just two authoritarian states. It's not one Chinese emperor versus another Chinese emperor or somebody who wants to become Chinese emperor. There's a fundamental difference in ideologies here and view of freedom and view of society. And many Koreans don't understand that. And the media most of the media is not really helping them understand that. Rather than simply preparing for open aggression, South Korea must recognize and counter the unseen campaigns waged daily by its northern neighbor and the world's most powerful and authoritarian state. So, the Segeilbo, Father's newspaper, or the newspaper that was started by Father, could be doing this, but they're not really. And it's unfortunate. Ignoring or dismissing these operations as fake news or conspiracy theory only serves the interests of Beijing and Pyongyang. Their sophisticated political warfare is a direct assault on South Korea's independence, democratic institutions, and its alliance with the United States. Recognizing and exposing these malign activities, however subtle, covert or denied, is the first step to ensuring South Korea's sovereignty, security, and continued prosperity. South Korea must therefore invest in robust counterintelligence, civic education, and information resilience to protect its democratic system. And this is what, somewhat ironically, the authoritarian President Park Chung-hee was doing, right? Invest in robust counterintelligence, yes. Civic education, yes. Park Chung-hee strongly supported the IFVOC, the International Federation for Victory Over Communism Education. When Kim Dae-jung became president in the late 80s, that was stopped. And today there is virtually no VOC education going on in South Korea. No. IFVOC, the organization, was working with the government, and they were having workshops for police, and the government was sending people, thousands of people, police, soldiers, and taxi drivers. The government would often have various workshops for taxi drivers because taxi drivers could, they meet a lot of people during the day, and they hear conversations, but also they engage in conversations. And so the government used to put a lot of effort into controlling the opinions of taxi drivers. I don't know if that's still the case. Anyway, who else? Of course, women, housewives, and so forth, and all sorts of groups of people were being sent by the government to IFVOC sessions, And Father, of course, warned that in the future that North Korea would propose a peninsula-wide presidential election. And he said, in that kind of a situation, North Korea will put up one candidate, South Korea would have various competing candidates, and so the North Korean candidate would win. That may yet come to pass. So information resilience to protect its democratic system. Only by acknowledging the true nature of the threat, one that operates invisibly, but with strategic intent, can the Korean Peninsula avoid being reshaped according to the designs of those who seek its division and subjugation. But the danger is that Korea could return to its historical mean. In other words, where it was for centuries prior to the late or the early 20th century, the early 20th century, in the opening years of the 20th century. You know, and historically, Korea has not been all that good at defending its freedom. There's something in the Korean psyche that is not very conducive to defending the country. You know, one Korean once said to me, well, even if China conquers us, we will survive. The Korean people will survive because we always have. We've survived 5,000 years, being invaded 1,000 times, an average of once every 5 years, and we're still here. So therefore, what this teaches us is that foreign invasions, being conquered by foreign powers, is not a threat to the ethnic group as a whole, which is some of you may remember the king giving sermons way back. When was that? 2015? It goes way, way back. 2015 or 16. What was it about R-type and K-type? And R-type, example of R-type is rabbits, where they get caught and they get eaten by wolves and coyotes and all sorts of other predators, but they're able to survive because they have so many offspring. And so even though they get attacked so often, they're not worried about as a group, they're not worried about being attacked because they know that their species will survive. So Korea, I think there's one. Well, there was only one person who told me that. Okay, only one person, but it seems to me to be indicative of something larger. And I don't want Koreans to be offended when I say this. I know that there are a lot of people in Korea who will fight to the death, and in fact, during the Korean War, there was a lot of stories of bravery and incredible sacrifice for the sake of the country that occurred. And even historically, there's a lot of sacrifice that has occurred. And yet, well, okay, the exception would be North Korea, the Goguryeo kingdom. When they were attacked by 1 million Chinese troops, they managed to do some sort of asymmetric warfare and defeat 1 million troops with a much smaller force. Goguryeo actually was a much more sort of a martial culture, I think. Whereas the South, the Silla, of course, Silla also had some martial culture, but not as much as compared to Goguryeo. But finally, Silla teamed up with China in order to defeat Goguryeo. So anyway, yeah, I think Korea needs help. I think that's the bottom line. Korea needs help. Korea needs help. All right, we shall see. But certainly, Father is interested in Korea, of course, and some people, I think, underestimate the power of Father. And of course, Father, remember, is from North Korea. So he's I believe Father is going to protect this country one way or another somehow. But certainly America needs to continue to fulfill its responsibility to protect Korea. In many ways, that can be done in many ways. And one way, I think, is to encourage Korea to become more able to defend itself, increasingly able to defend itself. Kook Jining was giving lectures on a strong Korea back in 2010, 11, 12. And even then, it was sort of touch and go as to whether South Korea would be able to expend the resources and time to defend itself. Today, 15 years later, well, let's just say it's much more difficult, I think, much more difficult, especially under the current leftist regime. All right, so that's that. And that was from UPI. Okay. That was from UPI. I doubt that I'll be going to UPI for a story anytime soon. All right, let's look at what Epoch Times, let's sort of get that bad taste of UPI out of our system and go to Epoch Times here. And yeah, okay, and look at that. We got some Chinese language advertising. I don't know why. I guess because Epoch Times is kind of Chinese. And I cannot read this. Oh, actually, here we go. Automatic multi-language translation. Okay, I got that much. The rest of it I can't understand. All right, let's see here. Trump says Canada's backing a Palestinian statehood threatens U.S. trade deal. Failure to reach deal by August 1 could trigger 35% tariffs on Canadian goods. And that may come about. There's not many hours remaining now. About what, 18 hours or so? Okay. Carney says Canada will recognize Palestinian state in September. Trump may yet get his wish. You know, the Western provinces are talking about leaving, some of them anyway. I think Alberta and Saskatchewan are actually having, or at least Alberta is actually having a plebiscite, or is actually having a vote on whether to become independent from Canada. Not necessarily to join the United States. That's going to take some negotiation, and the Senate, the U.S. Senate has to approve it. But at least talking about leaving Canada, and certainly, you know, if a harsh trade deal is done with Canada as a whole, then there will be a incentive for individual provinces to make their own deal and separate themselves from Canada. We'll have to see what happens with this. This is very interesting to me, especially because Canada's basic law, I don't know what they call it, charter or something like that. Anyway, the equivalent of a constitution allows provinces to leave under certain conditions. Yeah. Trump ends tariffs on all low-cost shipments, set levies on copper and Brazil imports. Okay. So until now, if you mailed something from overseas to the United States, if it was less than something like $600 or something like that, then you didn't have to pay tariffs. But now that's going to change. And I was saying before that I don't understand the tariffs on copper because, you know, that's a raw material and American manufacturers need copper. So we'll see how that works out. And Brazil imports. The Brazil imports, there's part of that is a political angle where he's trying to support Bolsonaro, the former president, who is in legal trouble in Brazil. And of course, Lula, the current president, is a communist and very pro-China. And Harvard says it will comply with DHS requests. Okay, well, yeah, that situation goes on. And big name politicians are running for governor in 2026. Here's the list. And Kamala Harris says she's not going to run for California governor. And Fox is speculating that, well, maybe she's going to run for president. And I don't know if Fox is just trying to troll her. I think the New York Times published a story where basically they were saying, please don't. That was their basic message. They didn't say that out loud, but it was basically saying that. So, we'll see what Kamala Harris decides to do. But yeah, I would, I think, of course, I think she should run for president. Yeah, right, sure. Why? I, I would support her campaign. All right. And let's see here. Parents are suing Snapchat over fentanyl deaths. The case against the social media company brought by grieving families aims to redefine big tech accountability. Yeah, that's interesting. But okay, well, I'm not necessarily opposing this. I'm not criticizing that we're doing this, but I keep emphasizing the role of the family. Role of the family. Okay. And let's see here. Newly declassified Russia records. Supreme Court. Yeah, we did that. Cases to watch next term. We did that yesterday or Tuesday. Okay. And transnational repression growing unchecked. Okay, I think that's basically all we need to do in here. Okay, Colonel John Mills. This is a good book, I'm sure. So we can take a look at. Oh, I'm not sharing this with you, am I? All right. Right, and let's go to, okay, oh, we don't have a couple minutes. Okay, let's look at what this is doing here. Trump won't recognize Palestinian state, saying that will reward Hamas. Okay, Canada poised to recognize Palestinian state. And Starmer, that's the UK, says UK will recognize Palestinian state unless Israel agrees to truce in Gaza suffering. And Netanyahu slams Starmer's vow. Malta to recognize Palestine. Malta, of course, is a very small country in the Mediterranean, joining France, maybe UK. Trump dismisses Macron recognizing Palestinian state. And Trump said, yeah, France, they're not really relevant anymore. We don't care what they do. Freed hostage, UK Starmer risks rewarding terror. Okay. And here, Trump signs order to justify 50% tariffs on Brazil. And tougher citizenship test from first White House term revived. Okay. And a trade deal with South Korea was set. And this is talking about privatizing Social Security. That's an interesting thing. This is something that the Democrats have been fighting about. Well, the Trump accounts, I see. Okay, yeah. Very possible, yes. The Trump accounts proposed in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that President Trump signed into law on July 4th could be a backdoor to privatizing Social Security. Yes. Yes. I think that's very possible. The initiative allows the federal government to contribute, of course, over time. That means over the next 65 years, right? Because kids being born now are being given these accounts, and these will be their retirement accounts. But then, there'll be some kids who squander it, or whatever, and so forth. So we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, that is a interesting privatizing of the Social Security. Okay. Obviously, Social Security, that FDR put in place in the 1930s, has reached its lifespan and is not going to survive very much longer. And people who are relying on Social Security today need to find some other something else. I think the government will do something, I suppose, because old people vote. So they will keep funding old people one way or another. But I think it's going to get tough for seniors pretty soon. All right, here Trump investigate Pelosi for insider trading, but the problem is that Congress wrote the law so that it is legal. It's legal for them to do insider trading. That's the way they wrote the law. Hey, listen, it pays. It pays to be in Congress writing the laws so that you can do whatever you want and everybody else has to follow your law. Yeah, that's the way it works. All right, gotta go. I'll see you tomorrow. Today's Thursday, tomorrow's Friday, so yes, I'll see you tomorrow. And tomorrow on the solar calendar is the first day of August. We're closing out July, and we'll see what August brings. God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.